think we are back. Yeah. Okay. So in the part one, emulator wanted to fight us. So yeah, currently we everything has been settled, and then we're here to continue with our work. All right. So we're not wasting time. We're on this members design. Then we wanted to change this text, right? The font size was very big. We've already done that. So we just take a look at it and then we move to working on the screen, right? All right. So let's go to the emulator, manage members, box members, and members. Okay. Yeah. So now the text has been worked on and currently it's looking good. So yeah, we can just move on. But before that, let me check this text and this text. So this is 16, right? And then this is also 16. Okay. Right. Right. It feels so big. Let me confirm from here. Yeah, it's supposed to be 11. I don't understand why. It's at 16. All right. So let's change the size to 11. Right. So rerun. Yeah. Then payout. I think payout also have similar thing. So yeah. So we're just gonna change this to 11 and that will be all right. So yeah. Mm, so we can go back and check payouts. This is cool. All right. Okay. Right. So now we can now focus on the invite members. We can now focus on the invite members. So now let's see. We have our app bar and then our back button worked on. Okay, so we can focus on that now. Right. So invite screen. We have the body. We have the body, all right. So we're going to take this image. I'm sure we already have that image. It's in the assets and then images. It's in it. Did I put it in icons? Nah, it's supposed to be in images. No, it's supposed to be in images actually. Huh. All right, so I'm gonna call image.assets and image is gonna be from box assets, right? So box assets dot wait, what's not right? Let me check. Yeah, so why are you given an issue? Okay, I first have to import box assets. Then I'll call the invite member icon. It's not supposed to be icon. Let me just call image. So um, All right, so let's rerun this and see what we got. Yeah, so for the size, I already have a screen where I can pick the size from. It's on the onboarding. So select views. Let me first check this. Let me first check this. So this will contain the image and that size seems pretty big. Okay, okay. All right, so just gonna give it a height. Let me first check what the UI gave it. 230. 230 is big. So let's see 200. Right, that's not bad. The fit shoulder just cover box fit. Alright. And then we want our elements to be centered, so we can either do this, put it in the center, but that will push the elements to this part. I don't want that, right? So I can equally make this way. This will also push it into the center. Let me just throw this into center and see what we got. So from there, what do we do next? So from there, I think we would. It's a very good sniper outside. Suppose you start pushing very second. Yeah. We have to move. We have to move. All right. All right. So yeah. So we already have our image. The next thing we need is this, which is going to be semi-bold, I'm sure. Then there's just the label, let's say title, subtitle, and then we focus on this. All right. So let's get that started. So we're going to use box text. All right. And we'll use semi-bold. And text, the text is going to be, let me say if I've already have it. So I'll pick from box labels and say invite members. Let me see what it says. It says invite member. All right. So let's run this. Invite member. All right. So according to the UI, there's supposed to be a little bit of spacing between this, a little bit of vertical spacing between these two, right? So you're gonna put 8.0 vertical spacing in there before the title, which is invite member. And then we're gonna have similar thing, which will be for the label, it is going to be regular, all right? Then it says invite your friend to join your group and save together, all right? So we're going to create a new string, all right? Local string, then invite member, mm, explained. Let me just put it this way, all right? So we just call explained, and then let's check the size from here. There's 410 regular. All right, so make our font size to be 410 regular. All right, so let's rerun. All right, so align is gonna be center. All right, align is gonna be center. Then let's do this. Okay.
Ah, two of them will come in, come in, come in. Two of them will come in, come in. Why? I need you. I need you. Somebody's coming from you, that's all. You see, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. I don't worry about it.
This person is not working. So what I'm gonna do is to just put it in a pattern and make sure
I
I
told you, because I know there's something there. That's why I called
make
you.
it big
But
enough
I had two
so
of them.
that this will
That's why I
just
called you.
shrink a little because the text is too big. I want it to kind of, are you even working? Why is it dark? Alright, so I'm gonna put this in a pattern. Alright, and I'm gonna call symmetric and call horizontal and make it 16.
I'm down,
For now, let me make it 24 and see what I got.
degrees.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm rerunning the app because some of the texts are not showing. So now let's see. Okay, okay.
Will you finish fast or will you finish fast?
Can make use of 32.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next thing is this. So we are gonna focus on this too. All right. Enter invitee number and then the number and then the fields, right? Right. So from here, we'll put vertical spacing, right? We'll add another vertical spacing, okay, which is gonna be 16.0. That will be the vertical spacing. And we are going to have a widget. So we'll call build input field. All right. We want to separate the input field from this. So we are going to call build input field widget, which will create in a few seconds. So we're going to have build input field. All right. Okay. So we're going to return that, which is going to be a column. All right. So I have to, sorry, I have to move this to down here. Yeah. So this column is going to have a children from the first houses. Uh, yeah, to the stats. All right. So the children, for the children, we are going to have the label. For the children, we are going to have this label, and then the input field. All right. Yeah. So the first thing is the label, which is the box text. So we are going to call the box text dot. I believe that's the regular text. All right. So we're going to have the text, which is saying enter inviting number. So we're going to enter the inviting number here. But this is supposed to be in the string class. So let's call our box labels and say dot. I'm just going to copy and paste this. All right. I'll leave my string in here. So I'm just go inviting. Yeah, let me just end it. I'm not gonna keep it as normal, right? So it's just gonna be enter inviting number. Yeah, so let's rerun this. Yeah, so that's that. That's that. From here, what we're gonna do is to make sure that all the elements in here, all right, all these elements, we have to make sure they are aligned to the start because as you can see here, I'm aligning my elements to the start, but that is not affecting this, which means from the parent section, I have to align it here. But I believe if I do that, some things will shift, or we can work it out. All right. So this, and this, right? From the image, right? Let me pick the image. Okay, let me just do this. Thank you, Prof. Welcome, Prof. Akwaba. Prof, what do you think? Do you think we are doing well or there is more to do? Yes, so from here we are going to have column and then we'll make sure all this, right? Because we want to align this in the center, right? So I'm going to use a center widget, call a column in there, and I will put all these three elements inside of that, right? Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put those three elements inside of that particular column so that the children will be aligned to the start. And then any other thing that I put in here, which is going to be the input field will be aligned to the end. All right. So let's do this and see. Yeah. So as you can see, we have this. Now we have our enter inviting number, right? But there are a few things that we are missing, which is this color and then the rest of the colors, right? So let's change the Suzu gray. All right. So we are going to change this color to the gray, right? Okay. We are going to change that to the gray. And then this other one, I believe the font size too has to change. Let's see what we have here. It is 14, yeah. Okay. So the font size is going to be 14. And then the font color, the color will be so gray, yeah. Okay. So from here we can put a little space in between them again. So it's just gonna be an 8.0 spacing. Then we can now focus on the text field, right? So I'm thinking, should I use font field or is it gonna be a number, not a long form? So mm, yeah, let me put it in a form, right? So before I do the form, I have to create a form key, right? So let me create a key. Let me say, I'm confused. Let me create a key and let me say form key. I'm not going to use this variable. So final form key is equal to global key form state. Why do I feel like I'm making a mistake? Sorry. I don't know, but I just feel like I'm making a mistake. Alright, so when we come down here, we are going to call our form class, right? And then the child is going to be just one form field because we're only going to use one form field, right? Text form field, by the way. And then the key is going to be the form key, all right? So let's rerun this. So this is our text field, right? So we are going to design this text field to look like this, Okay, so we're going to have a trailing icon and then a hit text. So let's do that. Right. So we're going to have to first let's do style. Is it decoration? I think decoration. All right. So input decoration, and then where would I start from? The prefix icon. Should I use prefix or just prefix icon? Yeah, prefix icon. So I can call icon because I know that's a phone, so we're gonna have the phone icon. Alright, so let me try phone. Alright, then I'm just gonna change the color to just gray. Alright, so let's check that and see. As you can see, we have that here. Alright, so the fonts look different by I don't know if it should be a big deal. So let me see what we have. I don't know if it should be a big deal. Let me check our assets to see if we already have it. Let's go Drainball's calendar. We're just gonna stick to this font. Alright. And then we're gonna have a hint text. So after our prefix icon, we have a hint text. We are just gonna use the box labels, right? So let's use the box labels. And then the number. Let me see what I'm gonna create for that. Search bar related strings, onboarding labels, off labels, pattern, news, navigation, snap bar. Okay, so let's create this a search bar related strings. Okay, let me rather make this hint inputs, right? Inputs, hints, text field. Okay, let me see. Text field, hint strings. Okay, so let me just pick this and then I'm saying, so we'll call this phone number, phone number hints. Right, so let's just put some number there for now. So let's say 0 to 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 3. Ah, so phone number hints. Alright, so let me put it in there and see what we got. Oh, I think I have an issue somewhere. Oh yeah, I already have phone number hints. Okay, that's why I love this. Because you wouldn't go creating the same string twice. You wouldn't go creating the same string twice. That's why I love the string class. Because it helps prevent the just wasting memory and all that, creating the same string twice. And you can just use the same thing in multiple cases. So you're just gonna design the hints to give it a color. So hint style, right? Let me see. So text style, and then we just change the color to Susu gray. Do we have to change the size? No, we don't. All right. So we have this. The next thing to do is the borders. Yeah, I think the border. Yeah. Can we put an elevation? Okay, let me see. Text form field. Hey, I want to see the methods in here. I want to see the methods in here. I don't want to go doing any long thing, trying to create an elevation. I can just use this one. If there's none, then that means I have to do it myself.
Mm.
Is there elevation anywhere? Nah, there's not. So let's create a border. We're gonna create a normal border. So input the underline border. Let's see, outline input border. All right. So we're gonna create a border side. We call our border side, and we give it a color of gray. So let's run this and see. Then we are going to do that for, we have to change the border radius as well. I believe that's what, 10. All right. So we come down here and change our border radius. So we make it circular, and that will be 10. All right. Okay. So that's what we have. All right. So what next? What's next? That next. What's next? Okay. So on active states, right? The border color has now been given to us for the active states. So we also need one thing. We need two things: input controller and then the focus node, right? So let's create an input controller. So text editing controller. All right. So let's call controller this way, and then we just say phone number controller, right? Yeah, so say phone number controller, set that's editing controller, yeah. And then we are gonna call this, duplicate it, and change this to focus node, right? We change this to focus node, and then we change this to focus node, right? Then we create little class that we use to dispose resources, right? We have to dispose the resources when the view or the view is exposed, right? When the view is no more on top of the trees, right? So let's say the phone number, controller to dispose, and then phone number focus node to dispose, right? Then we'll create, we'll call the, we'll override the dispose function. And then what we'll do is to dispose resources. All right. So we'll dispose, what's that? Dispose resources. Yeah, so what we're doing is we are creating this text editing controller that will hold the text or the inputs that we enter here, all right? And then we are creating a focus node that keeps track or that holds the keeps track of the focus and the focus states of the input field. So all those things will be in action when we're on the screen, but because they hold resources, we want to clear them off or dispose them when we are away from the screen, right? So when we enter a number here, and then so in case we enter a number here, and we move out of the screen, we want this number to not exist anymore. Alright? Because if we don't, that number will be saved in memory somewhere. Then we can get that number when we are back to the screen, which is not good because if we keep doing that, we are going to have a lot of kept resources or unused resources that might eventually slow down our app, right? So that's what we are doing here. We dispose those things and we just call it in the override method, right? Okay, all right. So let's go to our field. I'm going to set a controller to the phone number controller. And we are going to set a focus node to the phone number focus node. All right, that's what we are doing. And then we are going to on click outside and tap outside, right? When the user taps outside, we want to take focus of the input field, right? So we'll call the focus scope, right, of this context, and then we will unfocus, right? What is that? Okay, let's see. Yeah. So on tap outside, we're just taking the focus off. So this is what we are doing. Currently, if we are typing, we type outside. The focus is still there, but we're saying the next time we tap outside, we want you to unfocus. So let's refresh and see. So this, that's what we are doing. All right. So what do we do next? We have to make sure that the input here is for numbers, right? So we have to change our keyboard type to numbers, right? So the keyboard type should be a number. Yeah, yeah. So I think we good according to the UI. According to the UI, we've gotten this. The UI still has some few things that we have to do, which is this. Seriously, I'm not so much. We have this the shadow, the shadow, the shadow, the shadow. This does not have a shadow by default. So how are we gonna do that? But one thing I'm thinking too is look at the start of the app. I love consistency. So if we look at the start of the app, these are the input fields that we have, right? These are the input fields that we have. Yes. So having it look differently here is kind of uh, a little bit off for me because yeah, I feel it has to match, right? It has to be consistent all across board. So I'm gonna have a conversation with the UI designer. For now, I will keep to this input field and label. I will keep to this input field and label. Later, I'm going to have a conversation with the UI to see if truly we are doing this or that. All right. UI can become overwhelming sometimes, so the designer might miss some two things. Yeah, so let me jump all the way to the input fields that we've worked on here, and then I'm going to use this validator. All right, I have a validator for a number. Where is it? Yeah, so I'm going to use this validator for the number field. Don't worry, you'll see what it does. Let me do it after the declaration. So you see what it does, right? Now I have to get another button I have to get a button worked on before we can experience that. Currently, I'm just validating the field. All right, I'll use the key to do that. I'm just validating the field. If the user clicks on the submit button without entering the number, there will appear a red label here that will say phone number is required. And then if the user enters a phone number that is, I think, doesn't match 0 to 9, it's not from between 0 to 9, it will say enter valid phone number. Right, so maybe you enter a phone number and added SF or something like that. This will just check to make sure that your number is between 0 and 9. All right, okay. So what next? What next? What next? Mm, so the next thing is I want this input field to look exactly like the ones I have here, right? So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pick this, all this, right, and replace it with what I've already done. I was doing it because I want you to see how or the process that I'm going through to get all this here, right? But I'm going to replace them because I want everything to be consistent across board, right? So from here, I think, yeah, I picked from the borders. So the hint text is going to be this. All right, yeah. So let me rerun. So this is what we have now. Don't worry, this border here has a very thin line around it, the edges, but you can see it because of the emulator, something like that. When you run it on a real phone, you're gonna see the line, right? So don't worry, we're good. Yeah, so we have our input field work on. Our input field has been worked on. And I think the next thing is to build the button, right? The next thing is to build a button. But before then, I want to check the height between this and this. So that's like almost 40, right? And then in here, what's the height? 16. So the UI says 40. Let's say the 40. That's what UI says, not me. So I'm also tempted to pick the label, all right? To pick this label, which is black, with dots. I'm tempted to use the same label for this. So I'm coming here. I'm going to use media. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to take this off. And I'm gonna make the color to be black. I love consistency. I'll speak with the UI designer later, don't worry. This doesn't look good, seriously. Not to me. Yeah, but let's build a button and see if it will look good. Alright, so we're gonna have to put a button at the bottom. I'm thinking if we should have the button at the bottom. Yes, so if we're gonna have the button at the bottom, the very bottom, then I think we can use a line. If I use a line here, it's not gonna work. But I would love to try it for you guys to see before I do what I want to do. So we're going to keep it at bottom center. All right. So the child is going to be, um, let me go this way so that you guys will see everything. So elevated button. All right. The box elements that I'm calling are classes that I've already worked on. Right. So I've already worked on my type of buttons and all those things. That's what I'm calling. So, so to do here is to what's the to do for this button? Send invitation. Alright. So from there, the button text is gonna be what? Send invitation. So let's call our box labels. Do we already have that? Yeah, send invitation. That's what we're gonna have on the box labels. So this is button related field, right? So in the button related fields, we're gonna have send invitation. Sorry, that's -10. Send invitation. Yeah. So let's run this and see what we got. You see, the button is supposed to be at the bottom according to the UI. The button is supposed to be at the bottom. All right. So and the button is also supposed to stretch to the both ends of the screen, right? So the button is supposed to stretch to the right and then to the left. And that's what we're going to do right now. The simplest way to do that is to put your button widget, you first call a row, all right? Then you call children, then you call expanded. We are using we are trying to say the button or that particular widget to take off all the available spaces in the row, right? So for all the horizontal available spaces, that the particular widget that goes into this expanded in the row will take the whole space. That applies to column as well. Right, so it's called child. Then let's put our button here. So we call a row and then we call expanded. So assuming this, at first the button was like this, at first the button was this, but now we are saying for the horizontal line or for the horizontal available spaces here, right, from here to here, we want the button to expand and then take all that space. So that's what we are doing, using the expanded widgets in a row and then a child to achieve that. As you can see, we have our button expanding to the end, right? But still we have something to do, which according to the UI, It's supposed to be our button extending to the far bottom of the screen. Yeah, we can do that in few ways. One way is that we can just put a size, a vertical height between them. So we can say, hey, button go down by 40. If we are not okay with it, we can also say button go down by 80, and then we do it that way. That's one way of doing it. Another way, if I really, really want the button to be in the at the bottom, another way of doing it is to just take this off, right? Take this off, and then for this whole child scroll view, single child scroll view, I'm also going to take them, and I'll call it stack, right? And I'll put children, and then I'm going to put this single child scroll view in that. So I'm going to have this. And then after this, I'll use the align, right? So because this tag gives, yeah, so for this tag, yeah, whatever we put in this tag means it's taking the available space. So the stack widget takes the remaining space of the screen. And then we can use this align to direct where we want the child of the screen to be, right? So the align here is saying, hey, this child should be at the bottom of the screen, the bottom center. So when we run this code, this button is going to be at the bottom here. And then this button is going to be standing above this. Don't worry, we'll learn the stack widget in the future. But for now, this is one of the simplest ways that I've been using to align my button to the far bottom, right? Without this, you can also do it. There's a function or a widget that comes with a scaffold, which you can use to do that. So apart from floating hyphen button, you have the persistent filter decoration and all those things. The button is the widget is with the persistent filter buttons, right? So you can just call the persistent filter buttons and then you put this in here. Yeah, now you can see. But the issue that comes with this persistent filter button widget is that the elements are gonna have this line above them. And this is a line that you can't remove, right? And we also don't want this line here. We also don't want this line here. For that matter, using the persistent footer button becomes an issue, right? So that's why that's why I'm using the stack approach to position the buttons down there. All right. So let's check the stack approach. You see the button will be at the far end or the bottom of the screen. As you can see, now we have our button here. Yeah, according to the UI, the button is supposed to be like 64 pixels away from the input field. And because we don't want to leave white spaces in there, I'm just gonna go according to what the UI says, right? All right, so all this that I just did was just to show you a way to simply align your buttons in the bottom of the screen if you want to. Yeah, so let me take back my children. I'm just gonna do this. And then we have our button back at the top. And I'm gonna take the align off because over here the align doesn't do anything, right? The align has no effect because we currently the height of the screen, right? The height of the elements, because we are using single child scroll view, the height of the elements are shrinking. They shrink, right? So you can't, when you're using a single child scroll view, unless you use expanded in somewhere, it's you have to be very, very, very vigilant when trying to use expanded and single child scroll view to align your items to the far end or to the bottom of the screen, because you can have some layout issues, right? Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with the UI and then put a button, a vertical spacing between the button and then the input field. So this in here, the UI says 64, but if we are yeah, so the UI says 64, and that's what we're using. All right. So the UI is saying when we go to invite member screen, we're gonna have this. And when we enter the code, we're gonna send the invitation. All right. So now let's go back. If you remember, I told you we needed a button to see the value of this particular validator and then the form key, right? Okay. So we are coming to test out the beauty, or we are going to test out the importance of having a form key, right? Yeah. Mm. So if the user presses this button, the continue button, we have to make sure that we take the focus out. So first thing we will do is first we have to, so the first thing we will do is to make sure the input field is having valid characters, right? Or the number is valid. So we say form key dot current state dot um it validates. I forgot. Yeah, okay. So if the current state is validated, then we do something else, we do something. So let's rerun this. Let's see. So now you can see phone number is required. Now let's enter our phone number, enter valid phone number because it's not up to. Let's enter a lot. Yeah. So let's go back and come again. And then enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's not a valid phone number. I told you. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can see this number is valid, right? So that's one very good importance of the validator. All right. So our validator is working, and then if the number is okay, then the first thing we do is when we press this, yeah, we're good. So yeah, as it. If the form state is validated, the next thing we do is to do um, show in progress. Yeah, show in progress dialog. Show progress, and then the next thing is to then send invitation code. Yeah, so that's what we are doing. That's all we are doing. So we're done with the invitation screen. That's beautiful. We did this in exactly an hour. Beautiful. Okay, so I'll see you on the next episode. Tomorrow we are going to continue with designing our nav items. All right. So currently we have this implemented, but there's no elements there, right? So tomorrow we are putting those elements in here, making them link to each screen, right? So each of them will link to their respective screens. That is what we are doing. All right. So yeah, thank you for sticking around. If you watched to this point, I'd love you to drop a like, comment, com- comments, and then what else? Subscribe if you haven't. If you've learned something new, put it in the comment section. And if you want to share any idea too, put it in the comment section. I'll see you tomorrow.